Hey, now we're live on Facebook and YouTube.
Everywhere.
So what's up to everybody out there? We're now totally live on YouTube. Dr. Malone is back here.
In the house.
So now we got everybody here. We're fully streaming. It's live. So feels good. Episode number, God, what is it? Is it number 17 now? I think it's number 17. I mean, it's been quite a bit of episodes here, and hopefully,
your recording engineer keeping track of that for
well, and I'm hoping that the stream, I mean, it looks pretty spotty right now and pretty delayed, so I'm praying to God that it can come through normally and not get screwed up. But this will be a good kind of practice going on.
It's all a big experiment.
Yeah, worst case scenario, it doesn't work well, and you know, then I try to find a different way to be able to do this without having the live stream be super spotty and kind of garbage. Unfortunately, I was like, damn it, I need faster internet, so it's my bad. But that's okay. So tell the story, because, I mean, we do have a tasty whiskey here, which is really nice. And one of my patients gifted that to us, and Sean was just starting to tell the story before the live stream began. So tell it again.
Okay.
Tell me the story again.
So the first time we did a podcast, was that episode 1?
No, because I recorded by myself on episode 1, okay. And then I brought you in on either the second or the third episode, I think.
So as a good luck gift for your new podcast, I brought a bottle of whiskey to our first podcast.
Right.
We happened to crack it open because it was sitting there, so we started drinking on the podcast, and we called it Whiskey Wednesday.
Yes.
So now we're 6 months later, and there was a patient in the office getting adjusted by you.
Right.
And I walked by the door, and she's like, "You're the other guy in the video."
Right.
I was like, "What are you talking about?" So she said, "You're the other guy in the video," and she bends down and gives a bag, and she gave us each a bottle of whiskey, this Clyde Mays. And the coolest thing was the letter she put. It was a big gold foiled embossed letter that said, "I'm a whiskey connoisseur as well."
Right.
And we like to share our favorites and talk stories, and she wrote the story about Mr. Clyde Mays. He was the first one back in that part of the country to put apple skins in his moonshine, so he was like the original flavor enhancer.
For sure.
Anyway, the coolest thing to me was that this is a little touch of humanity. This is people reaching out saying, "I saw what you did. I appreciate it. I want to contribute."
Right.
And it's just something that brings the internet to real relationships.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, I think it's really cool because, you know, it's like I was telling that patient when she gifted us the whiskey, because Sean got one and I got one. And I remember thinking, I'm like, my God, dude, we have such a blessing in this clinic of really just incredible patients and people who are, you know, just really care about our well-being and how, you know, our lives are going and trying to help us and get us bigger and better. And I mean, just what a cool thing to have all the time.
Well, the energy here in the tribe of people is spectacular.
We got real lucky. I mean, I mean, you could say lucky, and also though it's like a lot of manifestation too. I've always put the energy out there and how manifestation really is like a thing and how important it is, because, you know, if you can manifest whatever you want, then, you know, that's really the secret to all this, is to having the things you want. So that's definitely something I wanted to talk about today for sure. Other stuff I want to talk about too is a couple of things that I've been doing is research-wise. I came up with some more interesting information as I've been like researching into the mind and stuff like that, and I wrote it down. Oh, you know what? In a second, I'll grab my notebook in a sec because I'll read it, because it's a lot of interesting ones, you know. And then obviously I also want to talk about the homelessness problem in this country, because, you know, I was telling Sean before the recording that I keep getting like all of these like homeless interactions randomly all of a sudden, like just constantly getting homeless interactions. So like outside the clinic, there's a lot of homeless now, and that weren't there honestly like 6 months or 4 months, maybe not even 3 months ago.
Definitely, I mean, an increase.
There's been a massive increase of homeless just right outside the clinic. I mean, we maybe used to have maybe 1 or 2 that hang out by the gas station. Now there's about 6 to 8 depending on the day. Sometimes more, and then they leave, and then some sleep overnight, and they camp around the bank over here. And then, you know, my other buddy, Dr. Jackson, was in town the other night, and I met them down in downtown Phoenix, and, you know, then we had a lot of homeless stuff happening all that night, you know. So we were outside having drinks after dinner, and a homeless guy came up to our table and was talking to us, and then we went inside the hotel to have one last drink for the night, and then a homeless guy came into the hotel and found my group again, a different guy. So it was just like this interesting interaction of just like a lot of homelessness going on. Now, obviously, you could argue maybe that it's because there's such a volume of homelessness now increasing, you know. But I'm a big believer that, you know, the way that the universe works is that if they want you to address something or talk about something or do something, they'll constantly like put it in your face to where it's like undeniable. And I think that's what's been happening with homelessness in me lately is, like, for example, a couple, 2-3 weeks ago now, maybe 3 weeks ago, one of the homeless guys out here, you know, I gave him $25 and we just talked for like 30 minutes and we were talking about his life. His name was Andrew and he was about 30. I think he was 34 and he was a cook. He recently got fired. And it was a really interesting conversation because his mindset about his life was very much a different mindset than I would have about things that have happened to me, traumas. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he's talking about his life and how he has like this constant anger problem and how, you know, his anger, you know, now albeit I don't know where all the anger is coming from. I'm sure part of it's obviously he's not having a home.
Maybe
He's fired from his job. It's his situation, right? But I was like, well, why'd you get fired? And he was like, oh, well, you know, how did he put it? He said, because you don't have any idea what it's like to be the best cook in there but have to work for somebody else, which to me means that his mind frame is very much like he's creating a lot of problems for himself. You know, he's allowing himself to be the source of a lot of his issues because, like, I've talked on the podcast before, right, about how you self-generate your environment. You self-generate your problems in the long run. Now, people have free will, so like I could come in and I could do something bad to somebody else, right? So we do have that still. But for a large chunk of our traumas, we self-generate them by either attracting those things or because we want to attract these traumas that we learn something. So it was just interesting kind of listening to his perspective of how in his perspective, everyone's been after him is what what he kind of described was like everybody's been after him his whole life. Yeah, like he's been a victim since the beginning and everybody's always after him and attacking him and you know what I mean? Like it was a totally different perspective than say that I have now. You know what I mean? Where it's just like anytime something bad's happened to me, I've now looked back on it and said, you know what? I learned something huge there.
How did I create it? How was I responsible for it?
Right. I was like given an opportunity to do something huge or to learn something or to grow, you know, and how he didn't have that thought at all.
So where are you at on this homelessness situation? Is it mental health? Is it drugs? Is it lifestyle choices? Is it the economy? Is it a culmination of all those? And are we talking about solutions or just addressing the issue?
You know, I mean, here's what I think for sure is on the solution side, I don't think anybody's really trying to find a solution most of the time. They're either like they're saying, well, you increase police presence and then you arrest them for a night and then toss them in a different part of the city, which that's not a solution. But that's what a lot of cities do, right? They just increase the police budget and they just kind of throw them in the drunk tank, you know, with other people, and then they get out the next day, and then it's the same problem. A lot of people also say, well, building more homeless shelters is like a big solution. And, you know, that at least could help give them a place to sleep at night if we built a lot larger and more robust homeless centers. But that still doesn't fix the crux of the issue, which is the person in question and why are they homeless, you know? So sometimes it is a mental health thing, which a lot of people talk about, right? They're not getting the proper mental health care that they need. There's also, I think, though, a large subset, kind of like Andrew was. When I talked to this Andrew, you know, guy the other night, where it was like he was self-creating the homelessness because he was attacking and pushing everybody back with his anger. So then he gets fired from his job, right? He got fired from his job because he was an angry guy and he was blaming everybody else for his problems, and he created a problem at work to then make himself get fired. You know, that's the type of stuff where it's like, if a lot of the homeless people want to come out of homelessness, they have to want to get out of homelessness. They have to be highly motivated to do so. And to then also look at those issues from a third-party perspective, like look at his anger issue and try to wonder where it's coming from and how to address it, you know. But that's the tough thing, is if somebody doesn't want to do that, then it's very difficult to get them out of homelessness.
Oh, it's so difficult.
You know what I mean?
Everybody says, just get a job.
Right.
Just get a job. Just start making money. And my wife's worked with homeless and homeless kids quite a bit. It's not that easy. Go get a job. You fill out an application. What do you put as your address?
Right.
Where are you gonna take a shower? How do you get to work on time?
Mike.
How do you cash your check? You know, a
Right.
bank account. So it's all just go get a job, and it's so much harder than that. And then they get a job making $12 an hour at 30 hours a week, and end up making what's the math? They're making $1,500 a month or something. That's not enough to live on. You can't get a hotel, or you can't get an apartment. You can't.
Right.
How do you live on $1,500 a month?
Well, and the thing was too, right? It's like, and he got fired from his own, he got fired from the job because of his like, the world's against me. And then now after he gets fired, now it's like, for him in that situation in particular, that just like reiterated it for
More
him. Like
ammunition.
now he feels validated that the world is against
See,
him.
I told you so.
That's it. He's like, this is what this is what always happens. This is what always happens. And I think a lot of us do that in our lives when bad things happen. We're always saying, well, it's always me, or this is how it always is. Like it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, and the more you say it, the more you manifest that to happen, because the law of attraction is a real thing. There's a reason why books like The Secret are really popular, albeit very simple, right? Where it's just like, if you constantly want something, think about it, dedicate the time to making it happen, you'll get it at some point, right? That's the whole point of The Secret and metaphysics and whatever. But the same thing holds true with things like this. Like every time you get validated that thing you have stuck in your head,
Confirmation bias.
that confirmation bias, and then you put the energy out there where it's like, you know what, you're right, you are that thing. You know what I mean? Like, I was thinking about that the other day when I was golfing, and I'm like, I have to change my attitude about when I hit a bad shot. You know what I mean? I do. I need to change my attitude.
You guys got to see the big baby that comes out when he
Dude,
duffs one.
I know. I do. I duff it, and then I get and then all the good things that I know I can do in golf just dissolve, because then I'm like, you fucking piece of garbage.
I've never heard someone
You know what I mean?
berate himself
You
so bad.
just
You big pile of shit.
You pile of shit.
You know better.
You little man. You teeny little baby-handed. I just start digging into
You
myself.
should just leave and never come back.
Right, and then you become this crappy golfer. As the round goes on, you become worse.
Got to master your mind, right?
Versus saying, look, I took a bad shot, but I can recover because I am a great golfer. You could keep saying that to yourself, regardless of if you are yet, because otherwise you're going to attract yourself to being a terrible golfer.
These are first world problems.
Well, no, it's true. I'm just picking an
the
example.
mental health, yeah.
But on the homeless side, you have to want to get out of the situation in the first place. But the hard part is, right, how do you motivate someone to want to get out of that situation? You know what I mean? I mean, one way is, like I said, you build these new homeless shelters potentially with lots of showers and lots of ability. So, you know what I mean? Like, we could probably fund haircut, people like salon people to come in every so often, get people haircuts so that they feel like if they're showered up, they got a nice haircut, that there's a chance that they could get a job. Obviously, it's hard to get a job if the big unkept hair set and beard, and you know what I mean, if you're not able to shower consistently and you have dirty clothes, right? Hopefully you'd have laundry services in there as well. So, but that there is a problem though, because you see this happening in a lot of homeless shelters where they get totally decimated and destroyed because there's a lot of homeless who don't respect it. They destroy the equipment, they trash the place, they hurt other people who are trying to stay there. It's a dangerous situation. And so then they kind of ruin it for everybody, and typically the government stops funding it. So this is the tough thing, because there's obviously a motivating factor for having more homelessness, and I think for sure the government is the first rung of that.
You think they're the motivating factor?
I think they're the ones who are partly responsible for creating more homelessness by making inflation happen, like right now, right? The hyperinflation. So now people who at least had a little money have no money at all now, because it's worth nothing, right? They fill up their gas tank and their part-time job can't even cover the gas. So, so then they quit the job or whatever, right? So it's like, I think that's the biggest factor right now that made it worse. I don't know if it's everything, though. Be like, the question is, in society, will there always be a subset of society that will be homeless because it's in their head? That's my question. Will there always be homeless?
Even if there's a subset, what's with the numbers? Like in Surprise, Arizona, we're getting worried because now there's 6 or 8.
Right.
Let's go to L.A.
Astronomical.
There's 60,000.
60,000.
6,000 per tent city.
It's crazy.
What do you do with 6,000 people?
That's the problem, right? They've got it to such a degree now. And I think, once again, because their politics, because how they've allowed the housing market up there to be too expensive, how they've allowed utilities and food and everything out there, right? I lived out there 8 years, and they just gentrified more every year. Every year was more gentrification to where there was no affordable housing. It's the same problem in New York right now. It's the same issue. That's why
San Francisco.
That's why all these places, San Francisco, New York, all these places. That's why they have such large homeless numbers, is because, you know what I'm saying? It's just they keep increasing taxes, they keep increasing real estate, they keep increasing everything, right? They keep taxing more people and then paying themselves and putting a little bit into this stuff or a little bit into that. As a society, I think as a whole, we need to have empathy for these people, and I think it honestly it does have to start with the people who truly want to come out of the homelessness. I'm telling you, like the people who really don't care that they're homeless, they don't have any motivation to want to have a job, or they don't want, because there is a group of there is a group within that group of people like that. There really is. I've met them, I've talked to them. They don't have any motivation to work. They don't have any motivation to not be homeless. They're cool with where they're at. But there's also a group of people in the homeless community that want to not be homeless. They just need probably a little more resources. Like I said, great place to shower, great place to get a haircut or something.
Yeah, I think the worst things I
Laundry.
see is the signs on the side of the road, and the guy held a sign, and he goes, "I was once just like you."
Right. Nah, man, that gets to you.
Yeah, we're a couple bad decisions away from being on the street corner with a cardboard sign.
Well, and that's where the empathy comes in, right? Because, anybody could go homeless at any minute. But the issue, like I said, the issue is the mindset change, because I know if I ever went homeless, there's no way I'm staying homeless very long, because I'd immediately start enacting some type of plan of how do I get the fuck out of this? Because I have that mindset. You know what I'm saying? I would not be homeless I'd be in 2 weeks. That's the longest I'd ever be homeless. I can tell you that. I would get out of homeless immediately, whatever it took. If I got to scrub floors, if I got to flip burgers, if I got to whatever, you know what I'm saying? I would do it. If I'd sleep, all I had left was my car, I'd sleep in the car. If I have to sleep outside, then you sleep outside, but it wouldn't be for very long, because I'd be going on Craigslist. I'd find 8 roommates. I get a place with 8 roommates. I'd be living in the ghetto, whatever I got. You know what I'm saying? Like, but the problem is there's just a lot of that lack of that want or that desire to do that. And because sometimes there's a lot of self-defeating things, I think. The mindset becomes self-defeating. The situation becomes self-defeating. What's the point?
Well, it's like, looking at an elephant trying to figure out how to eat it.
Yeah.
It's so overwhelming and so, intimidating to try to get out of that situation.
And the problem is I don't know if there's a perfect solution. There's places like in Europe that, for example, for the drug use, because that's obviously a big problem, a lot of drug use.
That's how you numb the pain. That's how you numb the reality of what's going on.
Right. But I think it obviously needs to get addressed, because if you want, for example, in full-time employment, no one's going to hire you if you're on drugs, especially hard drugs, right? So, at some point we have to be able to get people off that, because also right now the fentanyl that's coming in from China is the big thing, because that's why a lot of homeless are dying right now, is because they're, injecting this fentanyl. And now I was watching something the other day where now they're mixing fentanyl with benzodiazepine, and now they're really dying in big numbers, because now they're mixing it together as a cut.
Benzos are ridiculously addictive.
Oh, yeah.
Can't get off of that stuff.
And they're combining them now. So now it's like you got these 2 major, drugs in one, and now it's created, a pretty deadly situation. So, so the drugs are obviously a big component. And, in like countries in Europe, I think it starts with safer drug use first. I think it is, because they're still on drugs. They're going to get drugs. But if we started having centers where they were clean, safe, clean needles, the whole thing, I know a lot of people that, makes them feel weird about that, because it's like we're paying for drug use. But ultimately, we need to slowly step them down. If they're on a high dose of whatever, right, fentanyl, we need a clinic somewhere where they can go safely, to inject safely, to get literature and how do we come out of this, 12-step program or whatever, mentorship, and slowly help them to start coming down slowly off of these drugs by allowing them to have these injection centers until they can get down to such a low enough dose where then they can come off all the way. And hopefully, in that same location, have education there, classes or some type of program. And I'm sure a lot of people won't use it, but I'm sure that it's at least a beginning of somebody will start using that program and want to do it. I got to imagine.
I just think there has to be a doorway. There has to be, if we're gonna provide clean needles and
right.
what safe places to do drugs, right? Here's the doorway. You come in, you go in,
right.
Door closes. It's not a clinic where you can just come get clean needles every day. We're gonna give you dope or methadone, right?
For sure.
And right now you're smoking every 4 hours or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Once you pass through this door, we're gonna help you get rid of this forever.
Right.
We're gonna give you methadone every 10 hours.
Right.
And we're gonna slowly wean them down, and whatever that pathway is to be done with it. Once they enter the door, they can't go back out.
Right.
And it's a metaphorical door. I don't mean a door.
Right.
I just mean if we're gonna enter this program, we're gonna say we're gonna do this for you or with you or whatever the thought process is. It can't just be an open clinic with free needles.
Yeah. You got to either
so
has
now
to
they
be,
can come and go every day. They're still turning tricks.
That's
We're
it.
still getting other drugs. We're still living the life providing clean needles. This clinic should be the entry pathway.
Right.
You open the door and it slams shut behind you. And who am I to speak on the subject?
Well, whatever we got to do.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, but
it's a step one.
Little
but if
bit
we're
at a
going to
time.
keep providing free needles, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, no, just throwing free needles out there, that's ridiculous. Because all that is really is just saving somebody money on buying needles
it's
from
saving them
CVS.
Chronic infections.
Right.
But the drugs are still going to kill them.
Right. So the real deal is if they're, going to these injection centers, they would have to be basically a part of a program where it's like, the deal is we're going to give you what you need to start coming down slowly over time, and then part of the deal is you have to be showing up for these follow-up
And at the end, there
things.
should also be an apartment.
Yeah.
There should also be a safe place to live. If we have Section 8 housing, we have government housing, that's the carrot.
Right.
That's as you're getting off and on, you're going to have your own place.
Yeah.
But you need to not be high.
And I think it's got to be, like a transitionary thing where everything has time limits and time frames. You know what I mean? Like once you're clean, now you can live in this place. You've got X amount of months. We have a program here. We can try to connect you with different employers, right, who are willing to hire and whatever and interview you, and then hopefully once they get a job, link them to people who can get them apartments and things like that to pay on their own. And that would be kind of the goal.
Yeah, they have to want it, though. You're right. There
But
has
that's
to
where
be
it
a
is.
want. And what's weird is we're losing our whole society of people that work with their hands. We're losing our laborers. We're losing manufacturing. We need people who know how to plaster. We need people who know how to build walls and frame houses and electrical and plumbing and pipe welding. And that's the kind of stuff they're not going to college for it. It's apprenticeship programs. Why don't we train that?
Well, I think that would be huge.
And they're making more money than
That's what I'm saying.
jobs.
We could easily fill the job gaps for things that we need people for, easily fill it with, trained people who were previously homeless but now are clean off drugs and succeeding in life and doing what they got to do. And you know what I mean? That could be part of the program, transition of the program, because our government's always like, well, it's not in the budget. This ain't in the budget, that in the budget. And then you look at all the stuff they spend money on, and I'm like, it's because you're sending all your money into stuff that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? They'll say, well, we're going to increase taxes this year. It makes no impact on anything because of the ridiculousness of who's getting it pocketed and whatever. Like right now, our government's been a spending machine, printing, doing that. It's like, with even 10% of the printing they did just in the last 2 years, I'm sure you could have set up a system like we're talking about with just 10% of what we spent. It's just, but that really should tell us, that it's got nothing to do with anything.
So when the government creates a new $1 billion program to help whatever, the first thing that happens is there's an inspector or there's a director hired, and then they hired other organizational staff, and then we get a building, and all of a sudden this project, this fund has soaked up $1 billion, and none of that money has gone to help a single person.
No.
So now the government can say we've got $1 billion program to end homelessness, but not a penny's going to homeless people.
No.
It's going to bureaucrats that have jobs that say I work with the Getting Homeless Better program.
Right. That's it.
What are you really doing?
That's exactly it. I mean, what are you going to do about it? It's just, it's crazy to me that that's our system. And
I sit on the council that decides these things.
Well, yeah, and we pay all these taxes, and they go up every couple years, and then nothing changes again, except for everything goes more inflated and blah blah blah, yada yada. But I think what we're talking about is the closest thing to a solution that you're gonna get, because once again, the self motivation has to be there, and it's not like we can scoop all these people up that don't have the self-motivation to want to change and then dump them somewhere. You can't do that. So because they have rights, they're still people, right? So you can't just like scoop them up and throw them on an island somewhere and then just, wash your hands of it and be done.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm not the guy that gets to determine the solution, because I don't understand the problem.
Well, here's the problem. I don't even think the people who claim to understand the problem understand the problem.
Yeah. And every single person every homeless person has a different story.
Yeah.
So the problem may have trends, but every single story is unique. Every life is unique.
Well, and there's a lot of things into that, right? Like in his case, right? There's a lot of sexual abuse people in there, victims in there, or assault victims. There's a lot of people who were at the peak of their career and then just, you know what I mean? And
the rug gets wiped out from underneath.
And then they were used to the prestige, and now, you know what I mean? They just can't come out of this homeless thing because they're so, I don't know, demoralized or ego factor. They don't want to come back to their peers and say, hey, I was the CEO of this, or I was the whatever of this, and then the company went under and now I'm homeless, right? So that's like an ego thing potentially for some people. I had a great high class job or whatever. And some people, it truly is just the inflation hit and they couldn't afford their house anymore. They couldn't afford, or maybe they got a divorce. A lot of divorcees is homeless. You know, they got divorced, went poor from the divorce, couldn't afford a place or you know, lawyer fees or whatever, put them under. You know, so I think there's at least a good chunk in there that we could already start saving of just people who just are self-motivated, do want to come out of it, but do need some resources. You know what I mean? And the resources we're providing suck.
Yeah.
I think
there's a whole population we're not talking about. They deserve a little pat on the back and acknowledgement is homeless youth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know personally through my wife, she did a lot of work with a company called Stand Up for Kids.
Right.
And they have safe spaces throughout all the QTs in Arizona. But this company and what she learned was about how these kids, you know, 11 to 16, 17-year-olds, if you go to Metro Center during the middle of the summer, or middle of the school year, but the middle of the day,
Right.
the mall is full of kids, and they're all homeless kids.
Right.
And most people have no idea how many homeless kids are in Phoenix.
Right.
And they band together. So now under the bridge, we have a band of, you know, 25 to 50 kids who are in their teens,
Right.
early teens, late teens. One girl will get a John for the night. He will get them a Motel 8. She goes and spends, you know, an hour with him.
Right.
And then as soon as he leaves, she calls all her friends, and now 20 kids have a place to sleep for the night.
It's crazy.
Because he bought them a hotel room. Homeless children, they band together. They find a way to make it work, and their life sucks so bad that they ran away. They're being beaten. They're being abused. They're being neglected. They feel shitty in school. They have no motivation to do anything. And this particular group of kids loves them no matter what.
Right.
They find power in numbers. They find strength in numbers. They find unity. And it's very, 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 very tragic.
That's a big, you know what? I didn't even think about that. And you're right. That's a huge component, you know, and that's a place where you could start too. You know what I mean? It's got to start somewhere. It's got to start sometime.
I bet you
know?
20% of our homeless population is under 18.
Yeah, I mean that makes
I
a lot
just
of
made
sense.
that number
Runaways,
up, but there's a bunch.
but a lot of runaways. A lot of you can hear. You start drinking mine because I keep
drink
going.
your own.
Come on.
Want me to drink yours?
Well, the problem is I drank yesterday, and I have a limit where my body can only recover so well. I can't drink this whole thing because there's just too much in there. Because it's delicious, but since I drank yesterday, I'm gonna pay for it if I got work tomorrow. So I'll pay for it even after one drink that big, because I got to work tomorrow. But so yeah, I think that's at least a good pause on that one, and I think that does lead into a little bit. I think about. Because I was telling you earlier, I've been doing a lot more internal research of like on my own body, but also on patients too. Because as I'm doing this research, I'm learning things, and then I'm bringing it into the clinic on a patient by patient basis of people I think that might need whatever I'm looking into. I start kind of working on them with it as long as they're cool with it, and then we just start digging and we see what comes out of it. And I talked about this on the last podcast I just posted, where I was talking about how I've been doing this self-research into emotional healing and kind of how we either self-generate a situation or somebody else generates one for us in order for to learn and to grow in things. And, you know, earlier we were talking about, I was telling you about like Andrew and how I think he is partly creating part of his problem because he's just blaming the world on everything, and he's now creating it where he can't come out of it because he's not. He tells himself every day, I'm sure, where he's like, look, no one's going to help me. You know, everybody's bad. Everyone's against me.
I'm on my own.
I'm on my own, whatever. So he's at that point, he's self-generating it because you can't ever come out of it. Because once again, I can't go at gunpoint to somebody and say, you're going to not be homeless anymore. You're going to stop doing this. You can't do that, right? So I've been doing a lot of research. And let me grab my notebook here. Sean, can you grab my notebook right there? It's right behind you. I want to read a really interesting one. So, because I've been doing this muscle testing stuff, and I talked about it the other day about how you can, you use a keyhole like this with your fingers like that, and you can ask your body different questions, and you know what I mean, get answers for all different kinds of crazy stuff. And so, I was wondering about because the golf anchor. I know this is going back to the golf. I know it's weird. It's like strange to go back to the golf, but it's accurate. Because I was sitting, it was like last weekend, I was sitting around, I was like self-testing different I was still trying to, so I've healed all my current emotional traumas from this lifetime, And I was like, but I was wondering, I'm like, well, where does this quick to anger thing come from in golf? Because I don't have that ever anywhere else. I'm not a guy who's quick to anger in any other situation.
It surprised me when I saw it. I'm like, what is this?
That's never
not the guy I know.
I never get angry ever. And like golf somehow brought this weird quick to anger thing.
Shows your Achilles tendon.
And I was like, but I would self-test myself, and it said I've already found all the traumas in this lifetime and moved on from them, healed them. But then I was like, but I didn't dig into past life traumas and see if there's any last remaining things there. So I started asking questions the other night, and I started getting some answers. And I said, can you give me the lifetime from which this quick to trigger anger is coming from? Because I know it's not the golf. It's not the golf, because the golf is just the way open to showing me this like quick to trigger. So I found out what it was. I'm going to read it because I can't remember what it was, but it explains a lot of things.
You are listening to the Unruly.
As I hit my buttons. That was my button on there. So let me see if I can dig it up, because
This is like his journal entry or what?
yeah, I wrote it down because, yeah. Well, actually, it was a bunch of them. So there was one there. Here it is. Okay, so this one's interesting. So this is where the anger one was coming from. I also asked of a different one about why am I afraid to be successful in some ways, because I think there's a fear of money. I have a fear of having a lot of money for some reason. Deep down, I know I do. Because like last year when I started accumulating an incredible amount of money, I didn't want it anymore. I felt dirty. I felt weird about being successful. Unworthy of it for some reason. Like, where's the unworthiness come from? So I found out which trauma that was from, too. But let me read you the past life one I dug up the other day, because this one's really interesting. So this is where the anger comes from.
Bring it.
It is, yeah, here it is. Okay. So it's a past life trauma. As I was self-testing myself, I found out it was the year 1513. It was the year 1513. I was 4 years old, and I was a girl in medieval England. I know it sounds crazy to everybody listening right now. So a 4-year-old girl in medieval England, year 1513. It said that I was holding on to anger still because my brother at the time accidentally caused my death by feeding me something I was allergic to. And I was still angry about it. And then also on top of that, I asked, is there a physical manifestation on top of the quick to trigger anger problem? And it said, yes. It said it was causing tightness in my right shoulder. Now, a lot of people are like, well, how do you find that? I just ask a ton of questions. That doesn't sound like a long sentence. A lot of people are like, well, that was pretty quick. That was a
took 15
short
minutes
little,
to figure it out.
That probably took me about 20 minutes to dig into, because I asked a lot of questions. I'm like, what's the emotion? Who's the person? Where's the place? What's the year? And so a lot of people are like, well, how do you find the year? Well, the first question I ask my body is this before the year 1000 as we know it, or is this after the year 1000? And so then if
pick
it's
that out.
Yep, because that basically gives you a pretty close estimate, right? So is it before what we once again what we remember and understand, right? Because I think there's an ancient lost history, right, where humans have been here way longer and doing a lot more civilizations have existed that were beyond our current discoveries. But that's another thing, another time,
Different show.
But so I just always ask the question before the year 1000 or after, and I had to develop this set of questioning. So I'm at some point I might write a book on a technique on how to do this at home, because I've had to discover how to get to these answers properly. Like, what's the right question? And I've developed a system now where it's slowly building of how do I get there very quickly. And so that's how I figured that out is this before 1000, after? And then once you go say, oh, okay, its body says it's after 1000, then you go, is it between 1001 and 1011? Is it between 11 and 12? Is it between 12 and 13? And that's how you go until it goes week, and then you can go year by year.
So you found 1513.
So I found the year 1513. And here's the thing, guys. This is how you know this probably isn't BS. I don't know shit about history. Shit, nothing. So it's actually a great test to see if I'm making it up, because I'm telling you, I don't know shit about world history. I barely even know American history. So, and that's embarrassing to admit, but it's absolutely a fact. Total fact. There's three things in my life I suck at. Math, history,
golf.
Well, maybe. Directions. Driving directions without a GPS. Okay, those are the three things.
He's actually really good at golf. He's way better than me.
It's the three things I'm worst at in life. So this should tell you I'm not making this up. So then I did a technique called Emotional Freedom Technique. I released it, and I did notice, I played golf today. I hit a couple bad shots, and I honestly, 80% gone of any triggering. I kind of said, well, that kind of sucks. That was a crappy shot, but I didn't get angry. So
is EFT a tapping technique?
yeah, that's that emotional tapping technique. And then here's the second interesting one. I thought this one was way more interesting because this one was way more impactful because that took me 4 cycles of EFT to clear that first one. This next one took me 10 cycles, which means it was at least doubly more significant. So I'm trying to remember. Okay, here it was, the money thing. So like, why am I having this weird guilt or afraid to fear of having money? Dude, this one will trip you out because this one explains a lot of things. This is pretty cool. So past life trauma. The year was 1843. So I found out the year was 1843. I was age. This is what's trippy. Guess what age I was? 30. Same age I am now. This is where it gets really interesting. Same age as I am now. A man. I was a 30-year-old man.
Pioneer on the plains.
United States. I was a colonist. And I figured out the directions of where I was because I don't know history. So I said, well, where? Because I knew at some point in history there's like only so many states, and I don't know in the year 1843 how many states we had.
Was I east of the
and
Mississippi,
I didn't want to Google
west
it.
of the Mississippi?
That's what I did. I said, am I north? Am I west? So it said I was northwest, and I asked, well, where am I in a state? Am I in a thing? And it said I'm in a territory.
Montana.
So it said I'm in a territory. I'm in a northwest territory. I'm a colonist. I'm a 30-year-old man, 1843, and I'm like, okay. And here's where the parallel comes from because I'm 30 now, I'm 30 then. And when I started having the big money, I was 29, turning into 30 is when I started getting this large sums of money in the clinic. So it says I'm holding on to, or was, I cleared it now. I was holding on to resentment at my spouse at the time because they killed me for my money. They killed me in the Northwest and took my money. So that's why I have a fear of making money because I was in a previous lifetime murdered for having a lot of money. Fucking makes sense, right? I mean, think of how crazy that is. And seriously, I'm so open when I do this testing. I have no clue what's going to come up. And like I said, so then now I had to Google the history because I'm like, well, is that even accurate? In 1843, did we have a Northwestern Territory? And fuck yeah, we did. Pulled up the first map I pulled up. It's called the Northwest Territory. Right. It was a massive set where colonists all came, pushed out west. Just like in the movies, in the prairie, whatever movies, you're pushing out west. Yeah, that type of situation. And the Northwest Territory was a big territory where a lot of people went to. So it said, now here's where I was. Here's the next question I asked. I said, is my previous spouse reincarnated currently in my life? And it said yes. And it said, my previous spouse reincarnated as my father. And they reincarnated as my father because they had to pay back the karma for killing me in a past life. And that's why my dad is very supportive of everything I do in this life and always wants to try to pay for stuff. That's why my dad always tries to pay for stuff, even though he knows I can afford it all the time. Like we go out to dinner, he pays. If we want to go do a staycation, he wants to pay. My dad always wants to pay for everything, even though I say, Dad, I've got it. He's like, no, Patrick, let me do this.
Maybe he's just the dad. That's what dads do.
But he has no idea why he's doing it, I don't think. You know, he obviously knows he wants us to do it because he feels the motivation for it, but he doesn't understand the deeper reason. And the deeper reason was because in a previous life, he was my spouse who killed me for my money. And it also is the reason.
Clearing his karma.
Yeah, he is. And where's even crazier? Because I've always wondered, my dad makes a ton of money, guys. My dad makes way more money than I do. He makes 2.5 times what I make per year. And unfortunately, it never gets saved up. It always burns up. And I've always wondered, why does my dad's money always get burned up by odd situations? Like he bought a house, market like crashed, he lost money on that. He started a business crashed, lost all of his savings on that. It's always a weird situation. But when you understand this and metaphysics, he feels guilty for having money. Deep in that subconscious, he's pulling in the situations to take his money away from him so that he can pay the karma back for killing me in a previous lifetime for money. If that doesn't boggle anybody's mind, dude, I don't know what would. And then this one had a series of health effects that were hurting me, from heart arrhythmias to my stomach tightness and inflammation to bladder tightness to a bunch of stuff. It was like causing a bunch of physical symptoms according to when I tested it.
Back then or now?
Now. In current life form, I was still holding on to that. And then that one took me 10 cycles of EFT, which is really crazy.
This is rad.
It's pretty intriguing, right?
It's also trippy. It's pretty fucking
You got to
weird.
be open to believe.
You got to be open. And the cool thing is, whether you believe or not, there's parallels. There's ties here.
And I'm not looking for these things.
Well, but I'm saying, if they don't believe in reincarnation, even if no one believes your dad was your fucking mom or whatever that killed you and making up the money, like, it doesn't matter if you really believe that.
Right.
The whole moral of the story is you have an anger issue now.
Yeah, right.
EFT is a tapping technique that helps you when you get triggered, your body reacts carnally. It just reacts the way it reacts to certain triggers. And EFT is helping you realize those triggers, tap yourself, and now that doesn't tap. It doesn't do that anymore.
And for stuff that
So
you
we're-
would never think about.
Yes. So we're
what I'm
clearing
saying?
emotional triggers from you. We're not emotional triggers. The trigger will always be there. We're changing how your body responds to triggers.
Right.
Whether it's EMDR, EFT, chakra
right.
cleansing.
Right.
You know, pushing swelling out of my back when you're adjusting me.
That's
all
right.
of those things.
Right.
It's something real that is clearing a blockade out of your life right now.
And I think this is one area in particular. This is why I'm so fascinated. I'm doing all this research right now so I can develop this, because I want this to be a technique people do at home on their own, and they can clear all this stuff on their own. Because I always tell patients recently when I've been doing this research, because Julie, we were talking to Julie the other day, our standard process rep. You know, she was telling me, she's like, you got to write a book. You have to tell people how to do this, and that's my whole goal. Is I don't even want to sell it. I honestly just want to write this book. Maybe people can buy it for the cost of the book. For me, it's not about making tons of money on it, because I just want to change the world. I think this could change the world truly, because now, like I said, I went golfing this morning just out of curiosity to test it out. And the anger was literally 80% better when I hit a bad shot. It was, I didn't throw clubs. I didn't freak out. I might have said a couple swear words gently, but it was pretty chill. And then I would hit another shot and it was totally fine. I didn't tighten up. I didn't get all crazy. Cause like I said, the golf had nothing to do with it. It was triggering something very deep down. And now we have the connection. You know what I mean? It's very intriguing like that. To find these
So
connections.
everybody says, you know, especially golfing with me, the first time we golfed together a couple years ago, I'm looking at you going, chill out, dude.
Yeah, right.
Like, what? Just get up. Well, like, why are you acting like this?
Right.
Stop it.
Sure.
So you got over it.
Yeah.
But you got to take your own pathway to get there.
But it's you know what I mean? But it's like stuff that
Can
unless
we just not make a choice just to get over it, though?
I don't know.
Can you physically and consciously in your life say, I don't care about bad golf shots. I don't care.
But
I'm
that's
out
the
here to
question.
have a great day. I love the scenery. I love the golf. I love the wind. I love the cart. I love
Right.
all this stuff. Can you not just consciously go, I'm not going to be a dick when I hit a bad shot?
That's the hard
Why
question.
do you got to
though.
go through all the, your dad was your mom when she killed me
Dude.
for the money, and all of a sudden now
Because-
golf is not a bad
But
shot?
here's what I'm learning. It's because you have to clear it. It has to be cleared at some point, and the body is manifesting that.
Maybe you just cleared it your way, and now it's
Well, I think there's other ways to clear it without having to remember the lifetime, right? Because some people will, for example, get hypnotized to actually remember the lifetime, see it happen, do the whole thing, right? But this is another way where you don't have to remember it. You can just acknowledge it, do the tapping techniques with the amount of cycles, and you can clear it from causing whatever the thing is, especially the physical part of it.
your
at
conscious
least.
body just goes, okay, I can accept that.
At least the physical manifestations, right? Like that one's talking about the heart arrhythmias and the
Symptoms,
skipping
pain.
beats and the pain and the whatever. And it also you have to clear the metaphysical barriers, because remember the metaphysical barriers, you're self-generating those, right? I was self-generating the loss of money from being hyper. Not that I'm not successful now. I make a living. I'm happy, but I want to make a bigger living, but it doesn't have to be gigantic, but I want to make a bigger living where I'm able to be more free, dedicate almost full time to this podcast, travel the world, do a travel series showing the healers of the world and all the different interesting things. And
That would be cool.
I think there's amazing things to come, and I know this podcast is going to be fucking massive. I know it's going to be Joe Rogan big. It's going to be big. It's going to be Russell Brand, Joe Rogan big. There's no way it's not going to happen, because
Why
I'm
do
not
you
going to allow
think
it.
your message is as important as theirs?
It
Because
is-
it's all about the message.
I don't think it's more important. I think it's, like you
As
said,
important.
as important, because I think the things like what we're talking about right now, these are discussions that not enough people are having, right? But Russell Brand type folks, Joe Rogan type folks are starting to bring people on these shows who talk about this type of stuff. And it's getting the discussion going, because I think this is I think we're at a very important crossroads in history where we have an opportunity to open up a lot of minds to dissolve the barriers. You know, because I was thinking about this the other day, right? Like, once you believe in and understand reincarnation and how this is one big school, it's all a facade, and it's all, you know what I mean? It's the Matrix, and you can pick which body you have. You pick you decide the color of your skin. You pick your parents. You pick your major life traumas, right? That dissolves a lot of problems for the world, right? That dissolves racism right there, because if we had a mass belief in reincarnation and the fact that I've lived lifetimes as, you know, a black man. I've lived lives as a Japanese 5-year-old girl. I've lived a life, and you understand that, then that dissolves the sexism barriers. It dissolves the racism barriers. It literally dissolves all these things that people find so important.
We're brought down to humanity.
Right. Dissolves a lot of politics and political beliefs. A lot of that dissolves because then you see a bigger picture for all of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot that could be dissolved. You know, you stop caring about the fact that someone's richer than you, or you stop caring so much about having more shit in your garage or in your house, because you start realizing that none of that matters either, because it's all just a school. It's all a test. It's all just one big facade. It's a box. And once you learn and understand that you designed your own box, you can break it open and open the limits.
Yeah, all the limits that you're feeling are self-imposed.
It's like it's like if I got any gamers on here, right, watching. It's like if you were the game designer, there's a big difference between just being an NPC. And then all of a sudden, if an NPC became sentient and has all the codes that the administrator has,
Break free.
You fucking break that guy open, and now you're playing a video game against a giant chicken instead of the regular boss, right? You know what I'm saying? I could put superpowers on, and I could be 10 foot tall with a fucking awesome sword that I'm not supposed to have until later. Because that's what happens when you understand this is all a facade, and you control the environments. Yes, people still have free will. So some guy can still come in and do something crappy. Right? Like when I talked about the Texas shooting a couple weeks back, right? I did an episode on that. Somebody has the free will. They can do that. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, people can still do bad things with their free will.
Right.
But there are many things that are completely within your self-control that you self-generate and create with your mind. And that unless you start healing, for example, these past life things you still have in your cycles, or your current life ones you're still holding on to, people have no idea the limitations that is completely putting on to your life and your future. They have no concept how much that's limiting them from their full potential, and how a lot of that is self-generated. You know?
Well, self-generated. One of my favorite concepts is the fact that if you look at your life, your entire life is nothing more than a mirror reflection of your internal communication.
Right.
Your relationships, your job, your financial status, your kids, your garage.
Right.
How messy is your garage?
Yeah.
How messy is your bedroom? How messy is your life? Every single thing about your external environment is a mirror reflection of what you've created.
Right. It's
That's a responsible position to take. It's hard to take that.
It's hard
unless you're super happy about everything.
That's it. It's hard for people to say, look, like, I need to take control of this situation, and that I'm the only one that's going to keep me here. That it's true though, right? I mean, that's what the thing is. Like, once again, it's like, and when you look at these things, it's like the only person that's going to keep me and where I'm at right now is me.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. It's like, well, people are like, well, I need to make more money. Well, there's only so many ways to do that. You get a different job. You start your own business. You work harder. You work longer hours. You crush it. You do whatever.
There's a billion ways to do that.
There's a billion ways to do it, but you need to be the one to do it. That's why I was like, we got to start trying to practice live streaming and start live streaming, because I'm like, even though the universe keeps telling me this podcast is going to the moon, and it is, but the only way you get to the moon is I got to work harder. Because I thought about it, and I was thinking about this the other day, and Gary Vee said one thing, and I'm going to be honest with you, Gary Vee rubs me the wrong way, you know, because he just...
Why?
Gary Vee, and how would you take $20 for that? How about $15 for that? You know, that's my Gary Vee impression. I make a bunch of NFTs. I'm the fucking best at everything. I love wine. I'm a genius. Here's what everybody should do, and it's obvious advice that we all understand. This is Gary Vee. Okay, that's Gary Vee, and he makes millions of dollars doing that. So God bless that. God bless that man.
It's working for him.
God just
do it. You and your buttons.
Gotcha, bitch.
You know, I love those buttons. I love those buttons. But he said one intelligent thing that I did understand, because he was talking to Grant Cardone, who I'm also not a big fan of either, because his ego is also he's just like floating above everybody else. He thinks he knows everything and he doesn't. But once again, he's got a lot of money. He does know some things, right? But what Gary Vee said is, nobody's working harder than me. And he's like, everybody wants to know why I'm successful. He's like, nobody's working harder than me. And I also got, because once again, the universe people got to understand that they got to pay more attention, because the universe will throw you thing after thing, after hint, after slap in the face, after little tickle in your armpit of trying to get the message to you, and you don't see it. So once I saw this video, then I went back, and a week ago I saw a video on Facebook of a group. It was a husband and wife team. They started this very successful fitness consulting business. And the thing, they had a conversation with another business consultant, and the business consultant was telling them, because they were wondering, well, how do we expand further? Why am I not growing more right now? And he said, the number one reason you're not growing right now is because you're not putting in the same effort that you did originally once your business got to this level of success. You stopped working as hard to get it bigger. And I realized I worked my tail off to get this practice going, and I did an amazing job. But then I realized I got too comfortable with the podcast, and I'm expecting the podcast to blow up without putting even half as much effort as I did to make this clinic blow up, earlier as I did. So that was a big motivator for me. I was like, we got to start live streaming. I got to be consistent. I need to put the message out there. I got to be hustling. I got to be making this happen because you don't get to Joe Rogan unless you hustle.
And that's the goal.
And Joe Rogan had to step up because he had already gotten big on, Fear Factor. Also, he had a leg up to get to that, right? But he had to also hustle to get to that level too. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's nothing to brag about. So that I just realized that this is very important, live streaming and hustling and doing all these things to get this thing big, because it's got to get big. People got to hear this message, I
remember a practice management consultant, Larry Markson, with the Master Circle, him and Bob Hoffman. And I was listening to Larry speak one day, and he said that he was talking about manifestation. And he said, you cannot be like a Buddhist monk sitting in the middle of a garden, sitting in lotus position, and look like you're meditating, and you're going to sit there and you're going to go, there are no weeds.
Right.
There are no weeds. There are no weeds. And he goes, you know what happens after a month? Your garden is full of weeds.
Yep.
You cannot manifest everything away. You got to do the work.
Yep.
And,
100%.
And the same thing, whether you're metaphysical or whether you're Christian,
right?
They'll say God opens a door, you got to walk through.
That's right.
You got to do the work.
Yeah.
And so we're so stuck in entitlement, and it's going to happen, and I'm going to manifest it, that we forget to do the work.
Yeah.
We forget to make the podcast, to do the marketing, to do the advertising, to call the corporation commission. Whatever it is, you forgot to do the work.
Yep.
And our kids and this whole society we forgot to do the work.
Yep.
When you watch a movie, they'll have what we call the musical montage.
Right.
Like Rocky. There's dialogue forever. And then all of a sudden, there's like 3 minutes of musical montage. And they're showing video after video after video while the music plays of Rocky doing the work.
Yeah.
That's when he climbs the steps. That's
right.
when he chases the chicken with Mickey. That's
right.
when he's running. That's the doing the work. And so we're so focused on manifesting the result, we forget that we have to work.
You do.
Our kids have to work. We have to work. We got to earn it. One of my favorite speakers of all time is Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar said, the pride of ownership is preceded by the pride of earnership.
Yeah. Right.
You earn it, you take care of it.
Yep.
Your parents give it to you, you don't give a shit.
Right.
Earnership and work is huge. It gives us the pride.
Yeah, and you know what? It's like I mean, I realized that the other day. I'm like, because I was doing a lot of the manifestation, but the manifestation only opens the opportunity up.
Yes, it just opens the door.
All it does is open the door. But because what was interesting is I started recently seeing this angel number 515. I think I told you a little bit about that. And I looked up what is 515, because it happened many times when I was manifesting the podcast. When I manifest, I meditate and I think, look, big podcast. Lots of listeners coming. I'm going on Joe. I'm going on Russell. That's what I manifest. Lots of advertisers calling us and wanting to support the show to make it bigger. You know what I mean? All this stuff. And then the number 515 has showed up multiple times, so I went and looked it up. And the number 515 says that great success is coming, huge changes, financial prosperity, and all these things. But the crux of 515 is that, but a lot of work has to be done. Yeah. And it says to not, like one of the things it talked about was not resting on your laurels of previous success. It was basically, the message was exactly what these other people on Facebook had said, where it's like, you have to do the work. And that's what it said. It said in this message, it's like, this is going to happen for you because you've manifested. And we're also, I call them the spirit team, right? Because the spirit team, your angels, your archangels, your ascended masters, your guides, whatever you want to call them, they are manifesting on the other side too. If you invite them to do so, if you say, hey, can you guys help me manifest, they will on the other side of the
They'll
spirit
be part
realm.
of your team?
They're on your team already. You are, no one is ever alone. You are guaranteed to always have multiple people on a team on the other side that are always watching over you, trying to help you. The issue a lot of people have is they never start the conversation and invite that team to actually work miracles for them and to do things for them. They never say, hey,
engage them.
You know, some people do it with prayer, right? They say, God, come into my life and heal this. God, please help me resolve this emotional thing, or help me resolve my financial troubles, or whatever. People do it through, Christians do it through prayer, but spiritual people do it by talking to their team and meditating and saying, look, I need help with this, or please heal this, or help me discover this, or open the door for me to do this. And they do. That's what happens when you manifest. But that's what the crux of angel number 515 is that it is, you need to do the work, though, even though this manifestation is going to make it happen. It's not going to happen all the way unless you do the steps. So that was the crux of 515, which was, once again, the confirmation. So it's like you start looking at how life is always throwing you the hint, and then you just don't ever see it. You know, you see 515, 515, 515, 515. You see a Facebook video where it's the same information in different people. You know what I mean? Hey, you got to work hard. Hey, you got to hustle. Hey, you got to work hard. Hey, you got to do this. And you're thinking, you know what I mean? And it's like, so they're trying to show you that content, show you these messages, give you these answers, but you're not paying attention to look for those things. You know, even though they're trying to help you.
You're so caught up in whatever fire you're trying to put
You're stuck in
out
your
for the day.
box.
Yeah.
You're stuck in your self-generated box, and they're trying to pull you out of it with these little nibbles, these little hints, these little helpful, you know, tidbits or whatever. Like, that's what's happening, is they're trying to do that, and you're ignoring them. Not knowingly. Sometimes knowingly.
Consciously.
Sometimes consciously, but a lot of times unconsciously ignoring it because you're not thinking about that stuff. A lot of people aren't thinking about.
You're still stuck in ego, so you're trying to figure out, I got to solve my shit. I got to solve what I'm going through right now. And these messages come in, you're like, no, but I'm stuck in my shit.
It's because
I got to stay right here.
It's because we're in an incredible, how did I put it the other day? I think because we were talking about that with Julie and stuff over lunch, where it was like, we are in the most incredible generated virtual classroom ever designed in the universe. The most convincing dream that has ever been made. That's what Earth is. It is the most incredible, well-designed piece of natural technology in the universe, bar none. To the point where we forget, I think we were talking about this, to the point where you forget how incredible and powerful your own energy and being is.
You're a creator.
Because what the creator, the universe, the whoever you want to say has done is they've taken that incredible infinite energy and power and manifesting ability and then squeezed it into a teeny shard of yourself and then just put it right into a meat sack, right? And then wiped your and then just wiped your memory, you know? Wiped your memory, and you wake up here and you're like, what is this? You know what I mean? My name's Patrick, even though, you know, I go dig into a past life, and my name may have been Jessica, and on the, you know, in another time period that I think I've never seen, and I don't remember now, because once again, now I'm bad at history, but I obviously had lived a lifetime in that time period, and I would have known all that history. And maybe in another lifetime, I was incredible at history. But when I came this time, it was like, look, dude, you're going to be shitty at math, bad at history, and be awful with directions.
You're pretty dumb.
You're going to be lost with directions.
You're a doctor, but you're pretty dumb.
You're going to need that GPS. That's why you're in 2022.
Yeah, thank God we have GPS.
That's why you're going to be 30 in 2022 this time, because you need that GPS, because you had a lifetime in the prairie and you got lost and you died in the desert.
Don't you wish we had like a life GPS? But you can look at your phone and just do this.
But here's what I'm saying.
Go this way with your life.
This type of stuff that I am creating right now is the self-GPS. That's what I'm saying, that this unlocks the technology to do the self-GPS. You know what I'm saying? Because once again, once you invite the help in, you start seeing angel numbers. You start getting synchronicities of seeing the same things or signs and things that are undeniable. Once you understand that, they start giving you hints as to what's a good thing for you, what's going to help you. You know, you start self-testing, healing these traumas, and now you become more open. You become a better person. Your energy level rises. Your frequency raises.
It's like you're unlocking activation codes.
That's what I'm saying. You're unlocking these levels to the body because you're reading the manual.
Be more of who you really fully are.
Correct. Because then your chakras are clear. Now your chakras are blocked. A lot of people are like, well, I don't even know what a chakra is. Where do I start, right? And like 5 years ago, 3 years, 2 years ago, I had no knowledge of chakras, what they are. I'm at the point now where I can feel chakras with energy in my hand. I've practiced it now. I do a lot of deep meditation. I can feel energy. I can clear bad energy and things that I would have thought were kooky as shit even 6 months to a year ago. Things I would have thought were totally bizarre and I would have had no idea. But then life kept throwing me these things where it's like, no, you got to look at this. No, you got to look at this. Why aren't you looking at this? This is real. Why aren't you looking at your chakras? Why aren't you clearing chakras? I read a book from Dolores that talked about how, and people who are Christians, for example, once again, I'm not a Christian, but Christians, right? In the Bible, it talks about how Jesus says you can do all of these miracles. Yeah. You can heal people by hand like I do if you just learn. And that kept bugging me in my back of my mind because I'm like, Jesus said this, Dolores' book talked about that and stuff like that, where it's just, great healers all say that as well, where it's like we can do that. That ability is real. It's not fake. You can energy heal things. It's true. But you need to be able to be open enough to believe that it's possible and it's not pretend.
If you look at our sci-fi movies, right? You lay in this bed.
Yeah.
A computer goes, bzzz, bzzz,
right.
And it scans you.
Right.
And then it goes back and forth again. Bzzz,
right.
And it fixes you.
Yeah.
That's all energy.
That day's coming.
Is that not energy healing?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to diagnose with energy. We're going to heal with energy.
Yes.
That's all energy.
That's what's coming
down the pipeline. So everyone believes it if it's sci-fi, but if we say it's real, they're like, you're crazy.
Well, I think what people need to understand is everything was crazy until all of a sudden it gets invented, and now it's like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like 100 years ago, if they saw like my Volkswagen out front, that would have blown their minds. They've been like, what is it? Music in the car? With this screen thing? What is this? Like, that would blow their minds. And now it's like kids these days, right? Not a big deal at all. Expected. Don't care. So it's just that this rediscovery, and I call it a rediscovery because these things have already been discovered, but then buried by people in power, by modernization, by technology, right? Too high of a reliance on technology. So these knowledge bits have been lost. But that is the future, is healing each other with energy. Crystal technology, frequency technology, cleansing chakras, meditating, breaking down barriers of belief systems that are holding all of us back from being able to come together. Like breaking open your own box of self-limiting your own possibilities and saying, well, I can't do that. And that's the thing we all do, right? I said that to myself with the energy thing. Well, I am not an energy healer. I'm just a chiropractor. And I said, but then I sat down myself. I'm like, well, why? I said, only reason I'm a chiropractor was to get me into healing people. And why would I not be able to do that? Because once again, these energy healers, people, Jesus, like these other ones said, you can do this if you just practice, and you have to put the work in. Yeah. I can't just manifest the ability to do it. I have to practice. It's a skill.
It's pretty amazing to me to work in the same clinic with you and to watch patients come in and they have, let's say it's shoulder pain or kidney pain or low back. I don't care what it is. You do a consultation and we talk for 30 minutes,
right?
20 minutes.
Right.
We give them the first adjustment, and all of a sudden something inside of your spirit and their spirit connects. And you're like, can I just do something real quick and just deal with me for a minute? And you start muzzle testing. And whatever questions you're asking is up between you and them.
Right.
But all of a sudden, within about a minute, you're like, you know what? I think this shoulder issue you're dealing with is much more of an emotional thing.
Right.
It's not a structural problem. It's not a chemical problem.
Right.
Your shoulder is hurting because there's a conversation you haven't had with your son yet.
Right.
Or your spouse.
Right.
Or whatever it is. And they're like, fuck you.
Yeah. Because they start crying.
That's not the answer. They're like, who are you?
And then you start crying.
And this is the part where Joe Rogan should fucking tune the fuck out.
Joe would love this,
because you can spend 10 minutes with a person and go, look, I can fix your shoulder, but there's other stuff we got to do. I don't need to crack a bone in your neck to fix your shoulder.
Right.
I got to get you to realize that there's emotions trapped in your body,
right,
that you're mad about.
That's
and if we can get those emotions out, your shoulder pain is gone today.
That's what's the most interesting thing I found recently is.
But you got to be open. You got to be willing to at least hear that.
Right.
And go, okay.
But that's one of the things I've manifested is I've said, don't send me anyone who's not willing to be open enough to let me open the door.
Which is why your practice now is full of kick-ass people.
Yeah.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah,
and they're
true.
getting results that I never could have imagined, could have imagined.
It's fun.
This has been an interesting year because, like I said, I took a step back on the push for finances and the push for all these like other things, and I just really focused very deep down into how do we I need these people fixed better.
How do I heal people?
Because we were healing them. I was healing them very well in the past, just doing ABC because that's all I knew. And then I started learning how to chemically heal people, and now I started healing more people I couldn't heal. Yeah. And then just this last year, I said, there's a subset of people, even still, that I can't fix, and I can't explain why, and it has to be in this emotional, spiritual category.
And you feel like something's blocked inside of them.
Right, because
like,
you
I'm
can
just
tell.
I can't do anything else.
That's because you're working on them, and nothing, they won't let you do anything. That's the number one indicator that if you're a patient right now into the clinic or if you're getting treated somewhere else, and subconsciously you keep self-destructing and not allowing them to heal you, I guarantee you, you're in that third category. There's a massive spiritual and emotional problem or trauma and blockage that either from this lifetime or the past that you're holding on to, and you're not allowing that healer to come in because you're trying to control that situation subconsciously.
I won't let him help me.
That's right. And but they keep saying on the outside, right? You ask them and they say, well, I want to be helped.
They called you.
That's what they keep saying, right? They're like, well, please, like, I know, I just don't know why. That's the thing is they get frustrated with themselves. A lot of times they'll say like, oh, you idiot, you whatever. Like, why can't I just let you do this? And I said, it's because you haven't dealt, and I find out what the situation is. You haven't dealt with this, and you need to deal with this before I can help you. You know, because I'll tell folks, it's like, look, I've treated a lot of people, and I've fixed a ton of people, but you're not letting me fix you because I know the difference between someone letting me fix them and saying they want me to fix them, but not letting me do it.
Resisting it. Like
that's it. And so that's where it's like, that's when I started to have to dig into the emotional, spiritual realm that at previous, I would have thought I would have been unequipped to start digging into that gigantic ocean. Because it's like when you start digging into that, it is like drinking from a fire hose.
You don't know where it's going to come from.
Yeah, because you start digging and you're saying, well, what's the most important? What do I look for? How do I ask these questions? But then, like I said, I kept getting shown the way. My spiritual team, they give me these little downloads. They give me little hints in my head. They say, look, what do you think about this? Try this. Try that. Write it, and then write it down. That's why I started writing it down. And then, they'll communicate with you through dreams. You'll have a symbolic dream that will give me an idea for, well, I wonder what is that? Or
what does that mean?
What does that mean? What does that do?
I got to use the restroom. Is there a pause button?
Well, I think we're pretty close to the end of the podcast anyway, because we're at 1 hour and 10. That's about perfect. So, yeah, yep. It goes by quick. I know.
You're an hour and 10 minutes already?
Yeah, dude. We were streaming for 1 hour and 10. So that's another episode of the Unruly Doctor podcast, guys. So if you want to, once again, if you're watching us live from Facebook or YouTube, if you haven't listened to the audio version of the podcast, we're on Spotify and Apple. It's the Unruly Doctor podcast. Please go and support us on either of those or both of those if you can, because we're trying to grow. And if you're on TikTok, go to our YouTube or Facebook page. Hit us a like there at Springback Chiropractic. We got the video versions up there and other stuff too. And of course, also, once again, Spotify and Apple. All right, guys, I'm going to put this on the end screen. We're outie.